So
I'm
what
not
was
sure
the
if
song
that's
again?
actually the person.
Hey everybody, are we on?
Are we on?
Amy's shaking her head back there. Hey, we're welcome to
Table Talk.
Table Talk, and
He's Mike, in case he forgets. I'm Allison.
that's Al. We just call her Al.
No,
you
we
can
don't.
call her Al.
No, you can't.
Yeah, oh, you can call you Al?
I've never ever been called by a nickname.
Call you Al.
There was like one girl in elementary school who tried to call me Allie, and I was like, no.
Yeah, weren't having it.
No, and I don't hate that name. It's not me. I don't-
Sorry if your name's Allie.
You
Allison
may
doesn't
not
like
call
you.
me a nickname.
All right, I'm gonna share this as people get on. Of course, it hasn't told me we're on yet, so
And I put in the
There's
little.
a delay today.
What?
There's a delay. It's taking a little bit.
it's taking a little bit. So we're just gonna wait. And
I put in the little caption thing that we're talking about skeletons in our closet just to see if it would entice people to join in the discussion. I don't really want to share any skeletons. I just
What?
said that. Just because we're
do you have
talking
some
about our
skeleton in your
past.
closet? And
Who doesn't?
I don't care if no one knows it. So before you put me inside the closet and close it, I want to take you back to '73. It's an Eminem lyric.
Is this? Oh. Are you
You
gonna
didn't-
rap for us today?
Well, you know, maybe a little bit. You
Oh.
didn't think I'd be quoting Eminem today when you tuned into this, did you?
I didn't.
Yeah. All right, it's on now, so I'm going to share it. You're like, I didn't. Let's just-
I didn't think that you would
So
be
far we got
rapping today.
CNC Music Factory we've talked about. Finally, is that the song, whatever it's called?
If that's who it is.
We got
I'm not
Eminem, and then I
certain.
said something else earlier too. I sang something at the very beginning. So, but I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you could, if you don't mind, if you want to, share this. I'm going to share it right now. What should I hashtag this?
Skeletons in your closet?
What are your skeletons? I'll just ask that. What are your skeletons?
And just to be clear, we don't really want to know. No, put them in the comments. This will be interesting.
Oh, Allison don't want to tell hers, but she wants you to tell yours. That's
No, but when we're talking about the impact of those skeletons, like on who we are in our lives,
yeah.
why don't you tell everybody what Amy talked about?
Well, I'm gonna let Amy tell everybody.
Yes,
And
Amy, tell everybody.
Amy-
What did you talk about this past Sunday?
We told Amy just before we started that she's gonna talk, and she's like, "No, I'm not." And so we're just gonna sit here awkwardly and quietly in silence until Amy starts talking. Is what we're gonna do.
We're gonna be uncomfortable.
We're gonna be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we talked on Sunday about our past, about how to get past our past, how we can be comfortable sharing about our past, so that we can help others with our story.
Right.
So that's a quick overview.
Yeah.
That's a good overview.
And you know, at first, when we were talking about this, I thought of all the like overshares over the years, where you know you're like hanging out with somebody, you kind of don't know them very well yet, and then they tell you the things.
They talk about the UTI.
And you.
I don't know. I'm
And
trying to
you're-
think.
And it's not that you don't want to care about them, but you're like, it's too soon.
We're not that
Share
close.
that. It's
We are
too
not
soon.
that close.
We're not that close yet. But I think there are definitely relationships that are safe for that. And if you don't have any that are safe for that, there are people professionals, and I think sometimes
Yeah.
we stigmatize that, and sometimes you just need to be able to talk to somebody who's not, you don't feel judged by or whatever. So I think that's important, just somebody.
Yeah, and
And
for
listen.
those of you that I've been to counseling, I've been open about this, and I was talking to a friend last week, and he was saying, it feels weak if he shares with me his struggles and problems. Like he thinks that makes it feel weak, and I think there's also a stigma. I'm going to be sexist for a minute, and when I mean sexist, I mean men. I think struggle with this, with our feelings and emotions. We're not good at. We're told culturally by society that if a man cries, he's weak, right? And so we are told to. I mean, I can remember as a child being told to suck it up, right?
Yeah.
Put your big boy pants on and suck it up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, And I think we're getting to vulnerability a little bit. That owning your own feelings, knowing your feelings, and then if you're in this place where you're able to share those, I think that's important. And I think everybody struggles with this, but I talk to a lot of men who we see it as weak. I don't, but men have this tendency, I think, to see it as weakness. And I get that feedback a lot. So I know women do too. I was just speaking to men for a minute because I know a lot of men don't like to to go, or they wouldn't go to counseling, or they see it as I'm less than if I do that. And so I'm just giving. I'm involved with a nonprofit called 1 in 6 where we encourage men to. We do video chats or we do phone chats, so you can be anonymous and go and get help and stuff like that. So anyway.
Well, and I do think now that with COVID and everything, and they're doing more telehealth, I think that'll take down a barrier somewhat. Because I know a lot of mental health professionals are doing telehealth visits where you don't even have to go there.
Correct.
So it's like kind of breaking down some of those walls too. But I think the point is, and maybe someone out there would share if they've had an experience, and they don't have to share the experience necessarily, but with something in their past that sort of took hold, and I mean, it can eat you up alive if you don't deal with some of those things that happen to you, or choices that you make, not even necessarily something that happens
Because
to you.
when we get hurt or when we go through something traumatic and we don't talk about it, what happens is often you end up doing or becoming the thing that hurt you, right? Often, I mean, these are statistics. So we call these cycles of whatever, violence, whatever the cycle is, we often end up in that same cycle from the thing that hurt us and we couldn't stand. All of a sudden, we become the thing, right? And so I think
builds
it's
our personality.
and the thing we set out to avoid, to not become. Through avoiding it, often we become the thing that we set out to not be. And so I'm a big proponent when we talk about mental health of digging into the past. Like, it's a good thing to know, because really what you're doing is, why are we the way we are? And the way we figure that out is by looking back. So looking back informs us, but it does not define us. And I think Amy said that this week, that our past, it should not define who we are. It describes who we are. It informs who we are. And unless we dig into it and really break it down of what was happening, and often it's always when we were younger, so you're digging into it now,
right?
Right? So it's a less informed, less experienced version of yourself, and so that's the thing you're always thinking about. So I don't know. We're not good at this though.
No, I mean, it's really tough to want to relive things that happen that you would try so hard to forget about, and like, who wants to bring that back up and relive it? But
so we sweep it under the rug,
right? You got to work through it, or else, I mean, you're building your life on something that was a negative experience, and that shapes your worldview, it shapes your decisions, it shapes your behaviors. So
do you guys find this?
Anybody
do you find
have
this in your
any
life? Do you
comments
experience?
out there?
Yeah, like Jason said something to the effect of, "Suck it up, drink some water, and move on," or something like that. I glanced at my phone. I know I'm not supposed to be, but I looked down. I looked down at it. Oh, there it is.
I get so distracted because I want to look. Even having this on, like, my son just texted me, and I'm like taking the watch off because I can't. I have to look because I'm like, what's wrong? No. And it's nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong, but it's distraction to me. I have a hard time with that.
Well, you're a little jittery today, right?
Yes, y'all. Allergies, the Claritin D. I'm like, anyone out there
Yeah,
can identify
it's
with the
real
Claritin
right now.
D?
So
Anyway.
Kendall said that doing EMDR has helped her a lot to process and heal past wounds.
What is
So I asked her to
EMDR?
share a little bit more
Oh,
about
good.
that.
Okay, because I don't know what that is.
Kendall's watching today, and I was hoping she would weigh in with us because I know she can share a lot.
Yes.
For her
Well, and
professionals.
moving forward, we've talked about, for all of you that don't know, Allison does all of our social media stuff as well as this. And so we've talked about doing short videos and getting people to talk about more about mental health and what we can do. So I know you're working on
We're
some...
going to start actually posting Thursday Thoughts, and it'll be some different people that are going to share Thursday Thoughts, not always on the topic of mental health, but other kinds of insights to the sermon that week, or things like that. So that'll start this week, Thursday
Oh, cool.
Thoughts.
All right.
And so just short videos that people around here are contributing to that. So
if you have ideas, Kendall, shoot them over to us. But yes, go ahead, Amy.
So she said EMDR is a type of therapy where you talk through past experiences, process, and redefine how you feel about it. It's amazing.
love that.
Well, if you've ever done any work, you dig into the past, and then sometimes and now this is going to sound weird, but you might write a letter to your former self. So if something happened to you, I mean, everything that's happened to you was when you were younger. So it's a less experienced version of yourself, and giving yourself permission to grieve or to move through the process or whatever that looks like. And I think that's a good thing, because if we don't move on, if we don't grieve a thing, almost all pain, there's grief because there's loss, right? So we've talked about this, the stages of grief and moving through those. And if we don't give ourselves permission to grieve, if we don't experience the denial and the anger and all the stages, then what happens is we get stuck. And we get stuck in the past, and we just can't move on. And then that's why I was saying, then it defines us. Mm-hmm. We don't even know it. But
that's the thing, is I think the awareness of going through this process, what Kendall's describing and what you're talking about in therapy and stuff, like, is just bringing that head awareness to what is actually happening here. Like, this happened and this happened, and now here I am. Like, just being aware of that is like a big step.
It's the first step.
Yeah, it's not just defaulting into.
Right. Well, and then in our faith walk, in our life of belief that we're a part of something that's greater than us, that's kind of the first step in our faith walk as well, is to realize that there's things in us that we do things for ourselves, right? And we have hurt and scars and brokenness, and that's like the starting point, the realization of that. And so a lot of people, they might join a faith community, and you might get baptized or something, right? And so this is the external showing that I'm going to let go of my past, right, and move on towards something new and different. And so don't get me wrong, baptism is not
magic water.
No, and it's not a replacement for hard work. Yes, it's saying that I'm going to work on this, not that the baptism is magic and it erases my past.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear about that. And I encourage everybody, I think baptism is a beautiful thing. We have one this week.
Do it.
With this Sunday, yes.
Oh, nice.
Little
what
Harkins.
Oh,
Little Finn, yeah.
Remember how we joked about the Super Soaker baptism when this all first started?
Yeah, we're going to do that. I'm having to sit in the front row, and I'm just going to,
Finally.
Maybe just a water hose.
Well, okay.
Everybody, baptism for you, baptism for you. Everybody gets a baptism. Okay.
Well, I think, like, if you have that expectation of the magic water experience, and somehow this is going to change your life, that you're setting up a really dangerous fall, because it takes work, it takes time, it takes effort, it's a grueling journey to take yourself from here to here. So that's disheartening, and I think a dangerous faith stance that some people take is that
they think it's erased magically.
Yeah, somehow you should be better now.
And baptism is just you making the decision to start working on it.
Right.
It's a starting point, not an ending point.
You're just committing to a process.
Yeah.
That's all you're
doing.
That
it's beginning. Mm-hmm. It's a new beginning to start through the journey and that's how we describe our faith, right? That it's a journey that we're on together, and that we can help one another, and that we can work through some of the stuff to be better humans. And if we don't look back at our past, we can't be better tomorrow. Right? If we don't look back and say there's things that we need to change and do, so this gets into the idea of what sin is, right? What sin is, means to Mr. Mark gets into this idea of repentance, which repentance is just this idea that we try to realign and stop doing things and work on our path and our journey and who we are and our problems and our struggles. And so, but my faith tradition didn't necessarily talk about faith in the same way. It was a magic thing that you just accepted Jesus in your heart, and all of a sudden everything was better. And it felt like that for a little bit, but that was just an emotion, right? And then I didn't know to do the work.
Yeah, you have your mountaintop experience, and then it's like, now what?
Well, then I'm like, oh, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm broken, something's wrong, which, yes, but you know what I mean? Like, but it's not.
I must need to rededicate my life. It didn't work the first time.
Well, then we spend our lives chasing that thing we felt.
Yeah.
Over and over again, right? We want the mountaintop experience, and so we do things and we chase it over and over again. And then if we can't find it in faith, a lot of people have left faith, and they chase it in their business world or their personal, and we're always chasing the thing to make us feel a certain way instead of doing the hard work and looking at the mirror back at ourselves. Anyway, that's probably a whole sermon right there.
Well, Chuck said you will still sin after baptism. It's a change in focus, not an eraser.
Absolutely.
Yes, Chuck. Yes. Beautifully said. Yes.
And when you were talking back about Jason's comment, I'm trying to go back to see exactly what he said. When you were talking about how men handle, how they process, and he wrote, suck it up, drink water, and move on. And he said that because that's usually what he said, I was talking about what is traditionally expected from men.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we all feel that to an extent, but it definitely is a different expectation on men in our society to not be a sharer. You know, like it's not, I feel like there's no open door a lot of the times for men to share.
Well, we're told not to cry, but if women cry too, what are you? I mean, you're accused of being too sensitive, right? I mean, there's.
It's that time of the month if you're crying, right? That's the, you get told that. Women do
I'm not
get
going to
told
engage
that.
right now. I'm just
Don't
gonna,
engage.
I'm
no.
just going to listen.
No, but that's, I mean, we, on
Yeah.
both sides, women
Right.
and men, we tend to shame you for needing to show
Oh,
emotion.
there it
That's
is.
just what we do.
You just nailed it.
We
Yeah.
kick you when you're down.
It's shame.
Yeah.
It's we're told we're shameful, we're not good enough, and you're shamed in different ways. And yeah, we're all. Oh, this is why I love Brene Brown. She talks about that shame and vulnerability and guilt and all the things. I had a thought, and
Did it leave?
it did. I don't know what it was.
Like what we were just talking about?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't know. What were we saying before we got into what you said? Because then I ran away from the conversation, even in my head, and then I forgot it.
Baptism?
So,
We were talking about baptism.
Oh, yeah.
And it not being
in our faith journey and yeah, all the things. But so I think so. Part of this process is if we're here to be on a journey together, that there are steps in between. I'm here today, and then tomorrow I'm going to be sitting in counseling, working on stuff. And there's a lot of in between. So even if you go to counseling, it's 1 hour a week, type thing. There's so much of the in between that. And I think this is where our faith walk in our community comes in, because you mentioned it up front, you can have conversations with your friends.
Yeah.
And the pulpit or the public stage isn't always the place to share all those things. Sometimes it is. But the point isn't that you share with everybody. The point is that you're having a conversation with somebody else. And often we heal from a thing just from the verbalization of it.
Yeah.
Or from telling the story.
Because it uncovers the secret.
It can.
Yeah.
If you allow it.
And I didn't mean to say earlier that all of that is oversharing. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's a context of a safe relationship and one where you know you are loved. And that's where I feel like you should be able to talk about these things freely. But your neighbor you just met a week ago might not be the place to go for that.
It's cautious and careful too, because
Yeah.
we are also here to protect one another. And so it's good to be vulnerable, but if you're that vulnerable with everybody, you don't want to open yourself up to everybody.
You want someone who you know has a vested interest in your relationship. I mean, that's knowing that they care about you makes what they say different than someone who doesn't know you.
Right. And sharing that experience, talking about it, and so when you say it, something happens. The verbalization of it is something, and then when somebody else hears it, often their reaction to a thing or how they respond to it can help you have dialogue about it, which can help you through the process. And so what Amy was really talking about is the healing process. When you begin to heal, it becomes less important in your life. And so the effects on you diminish over time. Have you ever been told that time heals all wounds? What a bunch of BS. It doesn't.
Time by itself doesn't.
No, that's what I was going to get to. Yeah, it's not the time that heals it. It's over time you can work on it, and then it can begin to heal. And that does take time. I always tell people, when you're on the journey, it's about the journey. There's no destination. So if you've been hurt and scarred in your life, it never goes away. There's always a piece of it, because it does describe you. It just doesn't define everything about you, but it informs, it describes, it has input into a thing. But it never goes away. And so to say that time heals all wounds, I just always thought, that's crap.
Time can bury the wound in a bad way. I mean,
then it resurfaces?
You either use time to your advantage and work through those things, or you use time to continue to cover up layer after layer on top of something that's ill.
It will always bleed over into another part of your life.
Yeah.
And then it'll come out, and then the people around you, and then at some point I hope you are like, what is happening? So we talk about visceral reactions, like when you have a reaction to something, it's almost never the thing that's happening. I mean, in marriage, do you do this with your spouse?
It's not about the fact that we put trash next to the trash can on top of the counter. It's not about that. It's about something deeper down inside.
You listening, Todd? No.
I don't know anyone who puts trash on the counter right next to the trash can.
My kids do it every single day. It's the big things. They can't collapse a milk jug and throw it in the trash can. It's on the
Literally
counter.
right there,
Yeah,
next to the counter.
I went and
Just
bought
put
an
the trash-
automatic trash can opener. All you gotta do is wave your hand. We can't even do that.
We can't even do that.
Jeez.
But it's not about the trash. It's
Oh, it's
about
not about the trash, yeah.
the deeper
So-
issues that you haven't.
Can you tell how broken we are? Yeah, there you go.
It's easier to make it about the little things.
But it
sometimes.
comes out in little things. And
Yeah.
my thing is, the little things aren't as important when you can deal with the big things. And I say big things. Often it's a little thing that happened 3 months ago that you just haven't talked about or processed or discussed with your spouse or kids. And our spouses and our kids, or what I'm saying is just the closest people around you. So if you're single or don't have kids, substitute that with whoever, a roommate, the people
Parents,
closest to it.
anybody,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are closest to us also can hurt us the most. And so it's when we don't address the big things that they sit and they fester, and then all of a sudden the little things like leaving the trash. And Allison and I have always been honest because the people in our house don't know how to load dishwashers, and we do it right. And so
We are the only ones who know
Yeah.
how to do it.
but that becomes important only when there's other things that are happening. And so then we
there's
make it.
something wrong, and then you have to find something to. let
And then
it
you
out
fight about the dishwasher, and who
Yeah.
cares?
Yes.
Or the trash. I mean, at the end of the day, I hope my kids aren't listening. The trash
The
is
trash
important.
is important.
It's important.
It is.
But it becomes, we make it about that, and then we fight and argue about this, and then we never do what?
You
we
never
never
address
look
the
back
thing.
and address the root problem. And then we have solutions, and we put Band-Aids on stuff, right? So then we're going to implement a new rule in the house. All trash goes in if you want to do this. And so we create all this, and I'm like, no, this is the symptoms in the Band-Aid. We never actually talked about whatever the thing was. And most of the time, do we even know what the thing was?
We might
You
have
ever get-
forgotten.
You ever get mad at
We
somebody
might
and you have
forgotten.
no
I
idea
don't
when you're
know
mad
why
at
I'm
them?
mad.
You know what Jason said? Time by itself just helps you bury what is hurting you.
That.
I like
Yeah.
It's true.
So there's
And-
no healing.
And it's self-protection too.
Mm-hmm.
We let time bury those things, and it becomes this wall around us, and that's because we don't want to experience that kind of pain again.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's self-preservation, but when we know, so when we can learn that's unhealthy and it's going to make it worse for us in the long run, but it feels painful right now, so we avoid it, right? And it's the avoidance of stuff that usually comes back and bites us, and then it's 5 times worse than if you just would have addressed it up front and dealt with the pain right then.
And we didn't really go into how does this impact others, like in a positive way, if I'm willing to be vulnerable and share and not put only my presentable self out there to people, if I'm willing to share with them, their wall can be let down, their guard can be let down, because they're like, oh wait, I don't have to be perfect. This person has struggles too, so then I can share mine. And
Well, and I hope people know, because there is a stereotype, if you're watching today and you don't identify as Christian or any kind of faith community, I know there's a stereotype that Christians say or act like, and there are people that do this, but they act like they have it all together. I believe true Christianity, true faith, and that can be, like, I don't care what faith it is, any faith, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christian, Muslim, whatever your faith is, good faith leads you to a place of community where we all say we struggle. And that it's in that struggle that we learn from each other instead of having to experience the same struggle over and over again.
yeah.
And we're not good at that. I mean, how many of you are not good at learning from other people's mistakes? We're stubborn and we have to experience it ourselves. And I do
I
it.
try to tell my teenagers this, like, trust me, it's easier if you just listen to advice, not even just from parents, but just people who've been there, done that. Like, open your ears and listen. It's easier that way.
Where do you think they get that from?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
I'm not saying Allison's stubborn. I don't know.
Stubborn, independent. I call it independent.
And yeah, that's our flowery
Yeah.
way of saying it.
Yes. It sounds better than stubborn.
Yeah.
Independent.
Did you have something, Amy? Amy's looking at us like she has
She
something.
looks like
I
she's
have
got-
questions. I mean, I think so many of us were conditioned to show only our good side.
Mhm.
Like,
The Leave It to
it
Beaver
is
syndrome.
really, really hard to
Mhm.
be vulnerable and share
Yes.
with each other.
Mhm.
And so,
I think that's too, it's kind of generational, and I hope breaking
It is.
down over time, because I feel like my parents' generation, at least from the way I heard like my parents talk about their parents, it was very much like, this is who we are to the outside world, and in here we're this, and we don't talk about this out here. Like there was a definite barrier of what everyone else is allowed to see, and then what really is going on.
Well, I think, so growing up, a lot of people, death wasn't talked about. Like if you ever went to a funeral, like we didn't talk about it, and that death is part of life. And so a literal death of somebody is also the metaphorical death of anything in our life. But the physical death of somebody forces you into the situation. And I feel like we didn't talk a lot about it. My church, my faith community didn't talk a lot about it, even though to my core, death is something we have to experience. And I don't just mean that we're all going to experience death personally and from somebody else, but death in the metaphorical sense too, that letting things die, letting the old die and process is a part of something, a new life. I mean, it's the whole point of the Christian story, right? Death and resurrection. 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
I never know if she's raising her hand to talk. She's behind me. One of the days I'm just going to turn the camera around to Amy, just like, so you guys can see. She's back there doing this. I'm like, do you have a question, or we've had 5 minutes left? She's like, 5 minutes left. Okay.
Beth said it's like people thinking the church is for perfect people when it's there for imperfect people
Correct.
trying to be better.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a hotel for saints. It's a hospital for sinners, right? Yeah.
That's what we want it to be. I mean, maybe not all of our past experience would make us think that's what it's supposed to be, but that's what we want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what we want it to be.
Right.
Our church.
Yes.
But it's the human condition, take church out of it, is that you get together and what do? You have your tribe, the people who think and believe and look like you, and then what do? Then all of a sudden you're just a little bit better than the next group, and then a little bit better, and then your ways are the right ways, and then it just spirals. And so organizations in general, not just faith organizations or Christian organizations in general have this trend to move in this trajectory of our way is the best way, and when we get together and we're just alike, right? This is my issue with social media and social media platforms and their algorithms. Their algorithms are written in such a way that they encourage the behavior you're already
Doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then you become stronger in the thing that you're already doing, and then it shows you things that are like that. And so we just become more polarized in our thinking.
Yeah.
And so, there's some movements right now that to get off of, and I don't know if I disagree, even though we're broadcasting this on social media, but there also needs to be voices saying there's a better way to do things. And the way we've done it up to this point maybe isn't the best, and that's okay to admit and to say and to dig into it. I don't know.
Yeah. Anything else, Amy, before we wrap it up?
Lots of great comments today, sharing with each other about just the idea that we need to share with each other, that we need to be open with each other, that when we hear that we all struggle, it makes us feel more normal. Just,
Right.
That concept.
That's a big one, normalizing what is normal. We are on Facebook, we put our best self out there, and like we make it seem like the things that are normal to go through aren't happening at my house. This is what's happening
This
in
is
my house.
this is what my mornings really look like.
Perfect.
It's yelling at children and get out the door and get to school and they have your stuff and get your lunch back and your all the things.
Maybe we should start posting like bad pictures.
I'm gonna
bad
post
meaning
real mornings with Mike, with the
messy.
yelling and screaming and cussing that happens in my house anymore.
We can post without makeup.
I always have makeup on, so I don't ever get on video without makeup. So
They say the celebrities do that, post makeup-less selfies. I'm like, no, they don't. There's really makeup on under there, and they're just made to look natural. They can't possibly be that pretty with no makeup on. I don't believe it.
I haven't shaved in like 2 days, so you probably can't tell. I usually have a mask on, so we don't have to with our shield. So
You be you, Mike. Just let it out.
all right, how are we on time? We're at time. Okay.
Fine.
So, thank you for joining us. I hope that these conversations that Allison and I, actually that all of us have, that we're having together, I hope these spur conversations. The point isn't that you just listen and consume. The point is that you hear this and then you're starting your own conversations, whether that's on Facebook or social media or at your own dinner table, right? The whole point of Table Talk is that you are at other tables, whether that's a conference table or a restaurant table, a bar table, your own kitchen
A
table.
metaphorical table.
It is. And so what conversations are you having at your table? So I just want to always, every week, encourage you to start those, to have those, to spread the love that we're talking about here. And I don't know, I hope you have a good week.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Peace.